Yeah, tech problems. Guys, this is Mercury in Aquarius squaring Uranus in the fifth house, um, which I incidentally actually believe. So, what I was saying was lovely to have all of you here. Some of the people here are not regulars, but welcome anyway, and some of the people are. And Shan is one of the regulars, and I had an offline chat with Shan, and the offline chat that I was having was about this project that I'm trying to formulate how to make living in the world, not whether I personally do it or not, but I want to see it living in the world. And what the project is about is about this deep need that so many of us have that we can resonate with to be part of the solution of the present moment. We don't want to fix everything. Some of us have big ideas, but some of us just want to participate. We just want to contribute to be part of the solution. And there's a medicine or a calling or some kind of gift that we are that's trying to live through us out in the world. And our only place that we can do that is the internet. Oh, yes, we can do it in our communities. And if you're lucky to have that kind of community and that kind of footprint in your community, or if you have the means to make that, good for you, because I would prefer to do that. I really would. Rumi said, wherever you stand, be the soul of that place. I wish I could do that. I've tried here and there's not a receptivity to that. Mike, lovely to have you here, Mike. Mike's one of those voices that I'd like to platform over time. So recognizing that need that so many people have, that we want to be contributive to the space, but the space that we're trying to contribute in is sick. It's unwell. It doesn't lend itself to our kind of project. And our response is to individuate and to all become experts in Substack publishing and online video recording and digital production and marketing and search engine optimization. And there's a perversion to that, insofar as whatever you care about most deeply in the world and whatever medicine you want to bring, whatever daily bread you want to bake for people's souls, all of that is diminished by the project of becoming some expert in digital marketing and dancing for the algorithm and using the right hashtags. We're not built for that. We're not built for that. And the only response is for human beings to pull together in common cause and establish a kind of informal platform here where we can platform public speakers, people with ideas, help them shape their message and their ideas and their offerings and their permission to speak in the moment, to feel seen and to find their voice and to be heard, and also to be a receptive container, a village that wants to buy that bread, not because they're just starving for the next piece of content, but because they value the craft. They can taste the difference. Yeah. I hope you're all understanding what I'm saying. Neurodivergence, Shan said, are certainly not built for it, at least. No, and I've got a theory about neurodivergence because I am one, intensely so. And when I look back upon my life, the enormity of struggle I had with social convention and established authority was not because I'm just inherently disruptive. It's because I've got a golden ideal. I've got this unshakable sense of what beautiful looks like and what meaningful looks like and what better would be in a situation, what harmony would look like. And every time people make claims about what they say they want and then go and behave exactly differently and expect you to shut the fuck up, how dare you speak up? Who do you think you are? I realized that what was coming from in me was not egoic. It was a sense of what better looks like for everything and everyone. I'm just intuitively wired that way. And so my willingness to perform social norms and niceties is low. I've got a low appetite for that. I've got a low tolerance for that because I perceive that, rightly or wrongly, as a deep injury to my dignity and to the dignity of everybody else who is participating in these performative, immature, infantilizing norms and games. Yeah. Banished Contradiction says, I have qualms about feeding the system after escaping it. I don't know exactly how that fits into our conversation. Explain more. Banished Contradictions. Because I'm not suggesting feeding the system. I'm suggesting feeding other souls, human souls, feeding their bellies, feeding our spiritual and our soul bellies, right? Uh, answering our predicament of being starved for meaning. I wrote a beautifully long piece yesterday, and it responds to this. It talks about this. You spoke about SEO, and I feel like feeding it while being on the platform. Yeah. Banished Contradictions, whose actual name I don't know, says you spoke about search engine optimization. And I feel like when I'm being on these platforms, I have to feed it, if I'm reading that right. And the reality that I'm confronting, and I think we're all going to need to confront, is that we don't have another marketplace in which to do this unless we can do this in our communities, unless we have that ability. And we don't all have that ability. Yeah? And so, for better or worse, this sordid internet that we have, this current digital marketplace, with all of its problems, is the only marketplace we have. We've got two choices. We've got two choices here. We can go and make a second marketplace, maybe a brick and mortar one in the real world, if we're lucky enough to be empowered that way, or in a place in the world that is receptive and supportive to that. Because I assure you, there are places in the world that are not receptive and supportive to that. Yeah. There is a place in the world where you can be the most virtuoso concert violinist. Yeah. And there is no audience to play to. There is no one who will pay you for your supper. You cannot sing for your supper in those places. And for my sins, I live in such a place. But we can make another digital marketplace online, some other kind of version of the internet, where we try and reach each other. But we don't have the means. We don't have the means to build that. But I know what we do have the means to. We have the means to create a small corner of the internet somewhere where sanity and soul can prevail, where people of like mind and similar maturity and similar conviction can at least pull together and be that receptive audience for each other and be part of the mechanism of sharing and bringing people in, so that we don't rely on algorithms and search engine optimization, so that we rely on human voices to say what it is that we care about, human voices and human words, not, I don't know what to say. Can AI please tell me the response to this comment? For fuck that, man. Human voices, however imperfect, like that's your voice. And that's the part I want to hear. And I think that's the part people like me want to hear. To say why I like this piece of music by this person, why I think, Shan has got a good offering here, or why I think Rocco has got some important philosophy that we want to digest, why these ideas matter. Yeah. This is what I care about, because that the default is not going to save us. The way we're going about our politics, the way we're going about this way we argue about everything online, the way nobody listens, the way everybody speaks past each other, the way everybody is trying to teach everybody else, the way everybody else is arriving here with some piece of the puzzle and then demanding that everyone reorganize their entire way of thinking and all their language and all their internal priorities to make sure that the way I see things, trumps the way you see things. And it's never going to work. It's never going to work. But at the same time, with all of this mess and all of this tragedy, there are people coming through the field now who want to be part of the solution, who are sick and tired of the politics and the arguing and the spiritual bypass and the fake everything. We got fake everything. We've got fake coaches. We've got junk philosophy. We've got junk spirituality. We've got junk politics, junk values, just junk status, junk everything. And that doesn't mean that there isn't good philosophy out there. We don't need no philosophy or no spirituality. We need better spirituality. We don't need no politics. We need better politics. But it all comes down to the kind of people who are engaged in such questions. And according to me, and as something Bergs said, he's a monk. And if you do yourself a favor, Go and look up his videos. I'm trying to remember the name of one of the titles you can look at, and I'll maybe post it underneath afterwards. But one of the things he says is we've yet to realize that we are all one process. And he says, I don't even mean all humanity. I mean all things. We are part of one unfolding process. We are part of one unfolding process with shared roots and a shared teleology, a shared so that. And it doesn't mean we're all heading in the same direction. It means we're all heading in a direction that we are inherently called to. Like the branches of a tree, they're all moving out in their own directions. One is going to end in a leaf, one is going to end in a seed, one is going to end in a flower. Some of the branches won't make it, they'll fall down, and they'll eventually make the compost and the mulch that helps the tree grow. But we're all part of one process here. And until we recognize and realize that, right, we're going to be so busy worrying about the wrong kinds of things. Now, in our current predicament, that sounds profoundly idealistic, but it remains undeniably true as well. And in that process, what is coming through the field at the moment are responses to our predicaments. I'll read that comment in a second. Responses to our predicaments. People with incredible ideas, people who are wired to see things, neurodivergence again, to see things in a different way. Artists and creatives whose soul has been touched by the injury and the woundedness and the beauty of their life in such a way that they can tell a story or write a song or give us a piece of music or a piece of art that can tell us who we are again in a way that meets us in how we deeply feel inside of us rather than asking us to cauterize and cut that out. We've got young people who are problem solvers and pattern recognizers, people who are genius in relationship and communication. There's people in every single subculture on earth, the social justice culture, the masculine culture. Yes, there's toxicity and dysfunction in all of these, but in all of those subcultures, there's people who are waking up to the realization that that form of extreme and any form of hatred or division or derisiveness is part of the problem. And they still care about what they care about, but they want to find some way to converge. Those are the people that we want to reach because we can make common cause with them. Shan said, beyond just acknowledging that it's junk, the worrying thing to me is what the junk points to, which is a majority of unwell people serving perpetuating beliefs. I'm a psychology neuroscience postgraduate, and I fear that we are walking into a mental health crisis like we've never seen before. Shan, I disagree with you on only one point, is that we are in a mental health crisis. Deep into it. We are so deep into it that we don't realize that we're sick. We are so unwell. We are so imprisoned, enthralled by terrible ideas and terrible habits and terrible norms that we are in a predicament where we believe our way out of our discomfort is going to be found in the medium of that sickness. We are reaching inside the filth to try and wipe off the filth. Yeah. Gary says, Shan, I spent 2 years working in crisis management, and my experience is that the crisis is already here. Agreed. Banish Contradiction says, psychological systems themselves are what is keeping people sick. I want to read something I wrote today about how I feel. I poured my heart out into a piece yesterday. My absolute heart out. I poured my craft into it. It says all of this in a far more elegant way. It speaks about the grand sweep of the human story and this marketplace of ideas we have and this spirit of empire that believes that the smartest person in the room is the one that can take the most out of the system while giving the least back. But also what we can do in such a moment, yeah? And of course, it's crickets, tumbleweed, yeah? You know, I even recorded the voice and I recorded it 2 or 3 times and I sat up until 11 o'clock at night to get it right, until I felt right in my soul. And then I released it into the world. and crickets, of course, right? And so many of us are feeling this, right? And this is what I wrote today. There will be days when you feel pointless, useless even, against all of this. When you are confronted by how small and how ineffectual your voice is in the world and how unnecessary your gifts are deemed to be. There will be days when you feel pointless, useless even when you are confronted by how small and how ineffectual your voice is in the world and how unnecessary your gifts are deemed to be. And the trick at such times is not to speak louder or to search deeper and more desperately inside of yourself for value. It is to find the grace to accept that truth as it seeks to find sanctuary in your body and within the inner friendship of your own self-talk. The courage to speak and to keep speaking and to keep being the unfolding gift that you came here to share is predicated not on desperation and stridence, but on finding this grace and this self-love. You know what I know? I don't know everything, but I'll tell you this is what I do know. I know that I'm not the only one that feels that way. And what we're missing is adults in the room right now. And so many of us, just think about the situation. You're like a teenager in the back seat. The kids are strapped in, the toddlers, and they're gabbling or they're asleep or they're picking their nose or they're doing whatever, or they're squabbling, right? And the people who we think are driving the car, the adults, we suddenly realize they're asleep at the wheel or they themselves are toddlers, right? And you recognize this moment. The accident is coming. We may already have hit a couple of things that we didn't want to hit or a couple of people we didn't want to hit. And we're wrestling in ourselves to find the courage and the self-permission to lean forward and grab the steering wheel. But everything in our life, the system, all the voices have forever told you, who do you think you are? Who do you think you are? And so we sit there paralyzed by an indecision where we don't want to be so arrogant as to give ourselves self-permission to grab the steering wheel and do something. Because what happens if we make a mistake? What happens if we make a mistake? My friends, that is what leadership is. Leadership is taking the steering wheel without asking permission, facing the fact that you might be making a mistake, because guess what? No one else was doing it. And it needs done. And you have the courage, at least, to explain yourself afterwards, or to be thought of as arrogant, or whatever else. But we're at such a moment now. We're at such a moment. Banished Contradictions, please tell me your name, but says, Rocco, thank you for writing that. I'm assuming it resonated with you. And Shan says, great song by everything comes to mind. No reptiles, just soft-boiled eggs in shirts and ties, waiting for the flashing green man. Yeah, we're all waiting for someone to tell us what to do, but the people who think they know what to do, you are never going to be ready. You are never going to be ready. Hello, Mandy. It's lovely to know your name. Judd says, thank you for that definition of leadership. Yeah. I have a little piece that I write and I share and I bombard people with. It says, leadership is when you, oh my gosh, now I'm forgetting. I'll have to find it because I do want to read it to you folks. I'm not going to find it now. It's about the idea that doing something imperfectly with the right intent requires no time to get started and no permission to start and carries no risk of blame if mistakes are made, because mistakes are how we learn. If you have a willingness to take on feedback and it's in you, right? And you can demonstrate that. But you can also demonstrate the ability to take your own counsel. Why on earth should I be taking criticism from people who I wouldn't take advice from? Yeah. And I'm the wrong voice for this because I'm a white male, right? I'm not supposed to be talking about anything. But what happens if every now and again we get a white male that has a really good idea and he has something to explain to us? Are we going to shit our pants because he's mansplaining? What happens if somebody is a child and they have an insight? Wisdom and maturity is not the province of an education or of color of somebody's skin or of years or of any of those things. And we need to find the courage now to see past all of that and to make something else more important than all of that. We need to transcend our fears of being seen. We need to transcend our fears of being heard. We need to transcend our fears of otherness, of difference, of courting the castigation and the blame and the ire and the venom of the crowd. If we waited for the permission of the crowd, we would all still be eating raw meat and living in caves. Right. Peerlessness is the path of a chosen loneliness in some way. But I don't want to face that loneliness alone, and I don't think either do you. And this is why I keep talking about pulling together in common cause. Anna just joined. Nice to have you, Anna. Banished Contradiction said, I think we need to get out of the algorithm and build small communities, even if it's online. This is what I'm implying, not on platforms that pit one another against one another. We can't build another platform. I'm suggesting there is absolutely no reason, no sane reason why we can't build a small enclave here on Substack and let the videos and the conversation leak out beautifully into everywhere it needs to be. And bullshit will try find its way in here, and trolls will try find their way in here. But how guilds and clubs and communities and tribes managed that coherence and that circle of consent was through kinds of initiation, kinds of cultural adaptation, so that when somebody comes and starts ranting and flying off, it isn't some fearless policeman or leader that says, I'm sorry, I have to moderate you here. The crowd just moderates them and says, hey man, we don't talk like that here. We're not talking about that conversation. This is a grown-up conversation. We're talking about something else. Don't you want to be part of that? And very quickly, you know, it's like flies to shit or moths to a flame. You're going to attract the crazies. This is who I am. I care about what I'm saying and I mean what I'm saying. I'm not disingenuous and I'm not playing some kind of fucking game here. I'm always speaking like this, right? And online, I still attract people who attack me with the most insane vitriol. Because if I say something that marginally criticizes some motherhood statement in their little minds, then I must have voted for Kamala Harris. And I must therefore be a fan of genocide. And they just have these insane corkboard strings of logic that they've drawn in their minds and subscribed from the internet cinematic universe of what is real and what is true. I won't fight another for exposure platform to have my own voice heard, whatever it may be, no matter what. There is my line in the sand. Yeah, you hold your line in the sand, and I'm just saying when people stand together, they can create a different kind of line. That's what a function of emergence. Emergence is a fact of nature. It says when parts come together and cohere, when they converge, something is created, a whole is created that is greater than the sum of those parts. And it's not just about complexity that comes together. There has to be ordered complexity. There has to be an elegance to that. Yeah? But when that coherence happens and when that emergence happens, something is created that is both greater than the sum of its parts, but also a new possibility is created in the world that didn't exist before and couldn't exist in any of the individual parts on their own. That is a fact of emergence. And we can harness that fact. And there's a whole bunch of other things that we can harness, in things that we can do intelligently. I know that there's a lot of reasons why, but I'm no longer as interested in the reasons why we can't do something. I'm much more interested in the reasons that we can do something and why we should do it. Yeah. And, he who steps into the void and has the courage to do so owes no explanation to the ones who are standing on the edge judging it. So I'd much rather try. the conclave or enclave, I don't know what the right word would be, I want to start right here on Substack. Substack is the healthiest of all the pigsties out there. I want to do it right here. I want to create a speaker platform. And on that speaker platform, some people have better ideas than they have speaking voices. And I want to help them can their idea and simplify it for digestion and transmission to a ready audience. I want the audience to pledge, the community to pledge to a certain code of behavior, to say we're not here to promote our funnels or all the rest of those things. Those things can come in time. We're here to hold a line here, and we're here to make room for better ideas. We're here to contribute our own in there. And in there, right, there'll be people with incredibly great ideas that are incredibly great speakers. They're just terrible at algorithms and hashtags and building Substack platforms and publishing accounts. Somehow, some way, you people are encountering them anyway. And if we can find a couple of these voices and start the momentum, nothing has to be perfect. I was 27 years in corporate, and you know what they taught me? They taught me that there is a way to run projects that democracy wishes it knew about. Because nobody has to particularly be in charge. There's just an agreement and a spirit of what you're doing. Then you create a backlog of all the things that you want to see. All the features, all the acceptance criteria, all the wish lists, right? And then the group gets together, the steering group gets together, the ones who are actually going to do the work, and they decide out of that 100 items, which are the ones we can actually execute now? Which are the ones that are going to make the most outsized difference to help us get started? Which ones are achievable? And then they begin with those. And as they begin with those, they realize that they didn't have all the information and understanding that they needed. So they call the team back together and say, I'm going to need some more information on this. I'm going to need a decision made. What do we think? Right. And if people care about the outcome, we don't care about the blame. We don't just drive to complete something because it's some tech feature that's going to give us more money or more control over people's minds. There's going to be smart things that we need to do. I know how to run those projects. And there'll be other people that have worked in Agile as well. There's no reason we can't do this. There are free tools right now that you can sit and capture all of these things and make them public. You can make the whole process transparent. Right? We can create a trust. We can open a shared bank account. We can help people feed their bellies through this kind of work. And there's no reason that this can't become a kind of TED platform that isn't just caring about arbitrary fancy ideas, that starts caring about ideas that can have an outsized difference in the lives of human beings that are trying to connect more deeply with soul and trying to navigate this moment of trouble that is already coming and is going to unfold with greater alacrity and provide us with greater uncertainty that we have any precedent or language to navigate. I want to help with that project. It can be right here, Gary says, defined by collaboration directed towards something that enriches each one of us. Yeah. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I've got to take little Maya to school today. I'm glad I popped on. It's lovely, excuse me, to see this engagement. If you go pay attention to what I've been saying for a while, I've been saying this well or badly ad nauseum for a while, and it seems like it's got a little bit of attraction now. And Judd's here to help, and I know Shan's here to help, and I know Gary's here to help. And we don't all have the capacities to help in the same kind of way. But there's a magic happening right here on this call. And that means that certain kind of people are already being attracted. And the spirit of a thing, to be inspired again. Do you remember what it felt like to be inspired? To be deeply inspired? I want to leave you with this. This one I want to find. Bear with me for a second. Gosh, now I'm not going to. The deepest and most empowering happiness a soul can enjoy is the state of being inspired, in which the winter of every trouble can be held in your courageous heart of meaning, made enormous again by love. The deepest and most empowering happiness the soul can endure in this life is the state of being inspired, in which the winter of every trouble can be held in your courageous heart of meaning, made enormous again by love. And every old field of promise that you thought was dead, be visited again by a new spring. And your own heavy shoulders, your own shoulders of mountain belonging to a heavy autumn. And for your own shoulders of mountain belonging to autumn, a miraculous transformation. The bright green leaves of last year's summer, which have now become a pageant of burgundy and saffron and mystic purple and gold. That's what it feels like to be inspired. Things become impossible, things become possible. And you have a why again that you want to do impossible things for, because you've fallen in love with a possibility and an idea, and you like who you are in the light of that. Yeah. Yeah, well, Carol, I fucking hope so, my friend, because what we need now is movement. Yeah, we need movement. Where can one find that poem? That poem is on my notes section of Substack, where I do a lot of my thinking. I think out aloud on the notes section of Substack, and then after a while, I look at all those thoughts, and then they come together, and then I make a video or I post something. That's my process, But you all have yours. Folks, I've got to go. I've loved this conversation so much. It's meant a lot to me that you all came along and got engaged. And I'm going to just keep doing this. Even though I felt the way I said earlier on, where sometimes you feel your voice is so pointless and so meaningless, and that you are useless, and that there's no need for your gift in the world. Dostoevsky, I think it was, that said, the surest way to kill the soul of a man is to convince him that the thing that he cares about most in the world is of no use to anybody. So we all feel like that, and this has picked me up and hopefully shared that gift of energy and spirit and encouragement around. Yeah, thanks. Have a good day, and we'll talk tomorrow. Yeah, I am. I'm trying to save these lives, although it takes a bit of effort to patch up the recording and put it out online. And also, that's not my jam. There's all these little vignettes of all of these lives where I've said these beautiful things, and it's really touched people and it's touched me. But I don't have the wherewithal or the energy to now turn them into clips and filter them around. It's all too much for me. Yeah, but we'll get there maybe one day. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a lovely day. Take care. End video. And give me some love hearts, guys. Jeez, don't be so stingy. Where do I end? End there. Love hearts, love hearts, love hearts. Oh.